Rubens, of course you all knew this was Rubens. Or maybe you didn't. Where are the curvy ladies if it's Rubens? Yeah, we are definitely back to the gore today. What a lovely trachea you have. That's all I can say to this young man. Very nice clean cut. How lovely. So this dates to 1633, and it was actually painted for a church in Antwerp. Very nice. It is now in Bordeaux, in a museum in Bordeaux. But what do we have here? I mean, this is not a normal scene, is it? Walking down the road, someone gets their head chopped off. He's kind of holding it up, and this head still looks, if you notice, quite animated. And it's surprising the two people that haven't had their heads chopped off. They're reacting almost, it's almost a bit sort of pantomime-ish. The reactions are so massive, like, oh, arms out, their eyes are popping out of their heads. And the reason that they are so completely stunned, apart from the fact that their companion has had his head chopped off, but the reason that they're so completely stunned is that the head is still talking. Oh yes, so this person has not just had their head chopped off, they're still talking away, which makes them a very, in a very unique, well, not a unique category, but a very elite, that was the word I was looking for, category of cephalophores. Got that? Word of the day. So I want you all to go out and practice your word of the day, cephalophore, which means somebody who has had their head chopped off and the head just carries on talking. Weirdly, mostly reserved for saints and martyrs or martyred saints. Just doesn't happen so much in everyday life, really. So who are these people? Who is the cephalophore? Well, from left to right, I'm going to give you their names. Their names are, so we've got on the far left-hand side, the older man. This is Justinianus. The guy in the middle is Justinianus. And the poor little fellow with his head chopped off is Justus. They're all part of the same family. No one had any imagination, quite clearly. And in fact, the older man is little Justus's father. The guy in the middle is Justus's, I say little Justus's, Justus's uncle. And Justus, the cephalophore, I think I've just missed out a cephalophore, is he is obviously son and nephew. He is only 9 years old, although you wouldn't know it from Rubens' depiction of him. So the story is that Justus, Justinianus and Justinianus are all out. They are on a journey through France because they are going to see a relative who is being persecuted. So this all takes place in the 4th century and or 3rd century, and under the Emperor Diocletian. So this is 4th century. So this is the same time as poor old St. Peter the Exorcist from last week. Remember him? So he was also persecuted under the Emperor Diocletian, and they are being persecuted for being Christians, and one of their relations is being persecuted for their Christianity, and so they are en route to lend their support. I don't know what the relative is called, but I like to think it's a lady relative, and she's called Justine. That's what I've named her in my head. So they're en route to see Justine, and they get accosted by Roman soldiers, pagan Roman soldiers, and what happens is quite shocking. The two older guys run away and hide, leave Justus, who is 9 years old, to face these Roman soldiers. I mean, father and uncle of the year, not. And the Roman soldiers interrogate Justus, and they say, are you a Christian? And he says, yes. And they say, are you alone? And he says, no, my dad and my uncle are here. And they say, well, where are they? And either the poor child didn't know where they were because the irresponsible guardians, I was going to say a different word then, but I chose not to, had left him. And the Romans saying, well, show us where they are. You need to point them out. So he probably doesn't know where they are. Even if he does, he's not telling them. And so because he is obstructing Roman soldier matters, he gets his head chopped off. Of course, then that isn't the end of the story, because then he picks his head up and the head continues to speak. And at this point, it's not telling the Roman soldiers where his uncle and his dad are. It's preaching a sermon, and the story has it, because of course these stories are even more elaborated than the bare facts, which are fairly stunning to begin with, aren't they? But he is, so he continues to preach, and he converts quite a number of people that clearly have, unsurprisingly, gathered to watch the scene. He converts them to Christianity, and so for his troubles, he's made a little young martyr. Not a saint, but a boy martyr. Not to be confused with Justus of Paris, although many people do confuse Justus of Paris because it's pretty much exactly the same story, and actually in some texts the academics have decided that they were one and the same person. So the confusion is such that people don't even know whether they're being confused anymore. The confusion is so big, we don't even know if there's confusion. So anyway, Justus of Paris. He sort of has a little inn as well in not as in a place to stay, but a little he made a little entree into British consciousness in the 10th century, because the Cathedral of Winchester claimed that they had the skull of this little boy martyr, Justus, and he but then what happened was loads of other churches said that they had the skull as well, and so they kind of downgraded. They said, oh well, actually no, we haven't got the whole skull, but we've just got a bit of it. So a little bit of skull in Winchester Cathedral of Justus. Did I call him a saint? Oh yeah, I think maybe he was a saint. He's like a minor saint. Let's canonize him. Right. So we can't talk about cephalophores. Now I've just messed up the word. I'm just gonna cephalophores. No. Cephalophores. And if you've just joined, cephalophore is a person, normally a saint, who's had the head chopped off, but the head keeps on talking. Okay. So that is the word of the day. Obviously, this time yesterday, I didn't know that word existed, which is why I keep forgetting it. It's the truth. But we can't talk about cephalophores without talking about another French saint, Saint Denis. Saint Denis. So this is an image of Saint Denis, Saint Denis. It's in the Pantheon in Paris. And it's much later, it's 19th century, it's by Léon Bonnat. And here we've got St. Denis in the centre here, is actually sort of picking up his head, but there's quite a lot of action going on around the painting. First of all, who was St. Denis? Well, he was a bit later, he was 4th century, and he, along with his two colleagues, who you should be able to see both to the left and to the right of him, also been beheaded. They were preaching, it's the usual story, Christians against pagans, preaching Christianity right, left and centre, made a bit of a nuisance of themselves, and so it was decided that they really ought to be dealt with, and so beheaded. So Denis's or Denis' companions were beheaded and died quite, reasonably, but he didn't die. No, he, as you can see here, picked up his head and he tucked it under his arm, and it was still talking. Cephalophore. He was still talking, and he started to walk, and he walked north. So he walked up what is now the Rue des Martres in Paris, so going up to the north. I don't think it was called the Rue des Martres then, but it's the route that he was supposed to have took. He walked over a hill, which is now called Montmartre, the mound or the hill of the martyr, and he continued on up to the north of Paris, where he got, or a suburb now, where he got tired. He'd been walking for about 7 miles, and he then collapsed. This little head had been speaking sermons all the way up and converting people, and people were witnessing this miracle. So, again, I think it's fairly reasonable that he collapsed at this point. And now that suburb of Paris is called, guess what? Saint Denis. And a basilica was built there. And that basilica, so that was kind of 12th century, and then all of the kings of France were buried there right up until the 18th century, when really there weren't any more kings of France, apart from a few very brief spells for monarchs. Not the best time to be a monarch of France, late 18th, early 19th century. So the Basilica of Saint Denis. But this painting it's quite accomplished, actually. I love it. The thing that I really love is the fact that there's a kind of a firework going off. If you can see, there's a firework kind of going off where his head should be, and the bucket behind, or the barrel behind, which is presumably for the severed heads. Oh, nice. And then we've got the executioner over on the right-hand side, who hasn't even bothered to put his clothes on. He's just wearing a loincloth. He's so surprised that he's dropped his axe, which is now in the sort of the front centre of the work. And then this guy in the white robe is behind, is presumably somebody who has been converted. So he's kind of seen all this going on. Because if you notice, just look at the architecture here, sort of quite classical architecture, sort of suggesting a Roman temple, a Roman pagan temple, and so we can assume, arms out again, the correct stance for witnessing this miracle of the Cephalophore. So he's obviously been converted. And then we have an angel at the top, sort of coming down on a rather dark cloud. It looks as though it might be about to rain any second, but this angel is handing Saint Denis a martyr's palm and the crown of the martyr as well. So this is in the Pantheon in Paris. And one more, Saint Denis, also in Paris, important in Paris. So this is a much earlier one, and I love this one because here he is with his head, and he's obviously stopped talking now. But I just love the spurts going up. Should I love that? I don't know. Is that a little bit wrong? But just the still heading, kind of spurting blood, or is that supposed to be, I don't know, just some kind of, I don't know, sort of tubes, I was going to say. That's not a technical term at all, is it? So this is part of an altarpiece. Fantastically, this is still the original frame. This is now in the Louvre, but it was in what used to be the sort of Parliament of Paris. So this is called the Crucifixion of the Parliament of Paris, not that they were crucifying the Parliament, but it was the crucifixion that was in the Parliament of Paris. So it's 15th century, mid 15th century, probably by an artist called André Dieppe, from Ypres, not a Parisian, and old Saint Denis is with a very holy cast of characters here at Jesus' crucifixion, despite the fact that he wasn't even born then. But in these things, it's called a sacred conversation. When all sorts of different saints from all sorts of different eras all gather in the same place to either witness the miracle of Jesus' birth, or the lamentation, or the passion, or the crucifixion, or so on. So Justus, little boy Saint Justus, with the really crap dad who ran away and left him to be beheaded. This is the young one, and Denis, same thing, beheaded, carried on talking, but he's the old one. Justus, boy, Denis, man, old man, usually. Got it? I don't know why I did that. What was that? I'm going to turn comments back on before I get myself into trouble. Into more trouble. Turn on commenting. How are we doing for time? We're fine. So yes, a little bit of gore, and I want you to practice cephalophore. Morning, Penny, Holly. I've gone mad today. Okay, so remember, cephalophore, the very tiny bracket of saints that have had their heads chopped off and pick them up and carry on talking. Don't say I don't teach you anything useful. Or use that in a sentence today. It's pretty hard to do. Hi, how's your child? Justus, wasn't it? Is he still a cephalophore? I don't think that's going to work. Anyway, I think I'm going to go now. I've been really bad at putting things on social media, but there are, if you go to my website, beyondthepalette.co.uk, some Zoom tours in October. So Thursday nights in October, there are some Zoom tours going on. And as I said, I'm going to do the Halloween one. And yes, Halloween, Holly, is your favourite holiday, isn't it? Halloween, Holly, is your favourite holiday. Oh, I love a bit of alliteration. And yeah, so there are things going on in the background. And yes, keep an eye out. Have a great day, everybody, and I will see you next week. Oh, Sue, hi. Nice to see you. I'm going to go now. Bye.